Can I go back to that conversation about trust that we were having? Because there obviously, I'm sure that there are occasions in all of your careers where that trust has not existed. And maybe where either you did or didn't have the leverage to do something about it. I mean, George, you've talked a lot about your experiences with David O. Russell, which I don't want to rehash, but made me wonder if anyone in your careers has ever really, really shouted at you like that. Has anyone that really shouted at you, really treated you very badly, or witnessed people treating you really badly? Without naming names, can you talk about those moments where, how do you handle those things and what's happened?
I was once told I'd never work in Scotland again. And it was on my third job ever.
Really?
Yeah. That's the end of that. I'm not going any further.
But you were in a position where you were able to stick up for someone, but that's not always the case. I mean, you were in a situation where you had leverage.
I did a series called Baby Talk, where this guy. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I have a whole list of really shows that I was really in that I'm really proud of. I have a mullet, the whole career of a mullet. But I remember, because I've been that fifth banana on that show for a lot, and it was a sitcom, and it was one of those things where this guy was a very big, powerful producer, and he just, it was the Look Who's Talking sitcom, so it's a little baby has to talk as a sitcom. So first he fires the baby, which I thought was a little extreme. That f***ing baby. And you're like, maybe not fire the baby. And then, the lead actress was fired, and it was just literally, you could just feel the sights kind of, and it just started on me, and it was just, it was the worst experience of my life, because I've never been in that position where you can't defend yourself. Mm-hmm. And I remember, because it was a very specific moment it changed my career, actually, because this guy just, every day, just tore into me, and you just go, I got it. And then I was, my Uncle George, who I was named after, who I love, was a very funny cat, had lung cancer, had it for a long time, obviously, but was dying of it suddenly, very quickly. And I went there, and I was with him, and he kept saying, what a waste. And he'd had all this promise of these things that he was going to be and do, and he didn't do any of them. He died at, 65 years old, having not done any of the things that he wanted to do. We loved him, but he didn't do them. And I remember going home from that, and this guy started in on me, and I called up my agent. I said, how bad does it get, if I say, F you? And he goes, it gets bad. And I go, okay. And I walked in, and he went after me, and I said, F you. And I got sued by the network. I got fired, eventually sued by the network, and then they eventually dropped all of that. And it was a terrifying time in my, because it was that same thing. You'll never work in, Baby Talk again. You'll never do sitcoms with babies and stuff. And but it absolutely freed me up for the idea that the worst thing that could happen is you take away my sitcom, and I never work. And it freed me up from deciding I was going to try to do better projects and try to focus more on things and not worry so much about succeeding. Mm-hmm. It changed everything for me, but getting yelled at's no fun.
Was the main problem between you two your mullet?
Yes, it was.
Excellent.
Yes, it was. Thanks for that.
Right.
Too.
But thought about stopping that sentence halfway through. I thought, no.
Once you commit, you got to commit.
Yeah, and then it got a spattering of laughter as well. It wasn't even like a gut laugh. I feel really...
No, it was a polite, like a golf clap.
Yeah. I've really sunk.
It's over for you.
I liked your mullet.
Yeah. Watch it, you're connected. I tried that one. Well, because there is a side of Hollywood and there is a side of creativity that's, is the sort of mad genius side, which is if you're throwing tantrums and you're tossing papers all over the place and yelling at people, there is this belief that you have to be temperamental or something like that to be great, and that's just their process. Is that tolerated sometimes? Is that, how do you handle that when it comes up against legitimate? I mean, Three Kings was a great movie. So
yeah. I mean, sometimes out of some sort of chaos, something great can happen. But it doesn't mean that all of those things couldn't have happened without people throwing. yelling and screaming at extras, and you know, I mean, you know, there's this thing that I have where at some point you just go, you know, for some people who come and visit this world that we live in for a good, you know, if you're on a set and you do a couple of jobs a year, you know, it's 6-7 months out of your life, you know, that you're in this world, and your family become crew and cameramen and actors, and that's your world. And you don't want it to be, or I don't want it to be, where people crap all over it for 6 months, so you can go home and sort of go, well, you know, it was all completely for the good of the film. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't have creative disagreements, or it doesn't mean you can't have, you can't put yourself in a position where you say, well, this is the world that I'm going to create, and everybody understands it, so we're going to create this world. It just means that, you know, these sort of outbursts of being unkind and humiliating people, I think it stifles creativity. You know, for me, it does.
Have any of you been fired?
I was once, but
Once.
anybody
Yeah, I
else?
Yeah. No, I didn't actually, but the job was taken away from me before I could do it in that situation where I would never work in Scotland again.
Oh, okay. What prompted that comment? What did you do?
I'm not telling you. Sorry.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I've been in a job though where an actor was replaced, and it wasn't a young actor either. I think it must have been 40, and it was devastating.
Yes.
Absolutely devastating. It was devastating for all of the rest of the cast, but it was, I don't know, I knew that actor before we worked together on that job. We'd worked together on a play beforehand as well, and I tried to get in contact with him a number of times, and anyone connected to that job, he just kind of created distance from for a year or so, and it was absolutely devastating thing to happen, especially because I think it's such a terrifying thing being an actor, playing a character, your own show, and certainly you're risking something, certainly in the first few weeks of a job as well, where everything's very raw and new, and all the producers are leaning forward going, have we hired the right guy? And you know they're doing it. And I think it was devastating to have felt absolutely brutalised like that. I mean, he was told every day that what he was doing it was ridiculous. He was told by producers every day that what he was doing was iconic. That's the phrase I remember. What you're doing is iconic. It's brilliant, it's genius, iconic. And then they sacked him 3 weeks in.
So if anyone says iconic, you just punch them straight away.
Yeah, just say through the mullet stays. Yeah. It always works. Get baseball. Yeah.
Never not worked.
Sorry, mate.
I like it.
I'm really sorry. I've drank 2 bottles of water and I need to go to the toilet.
No, actually, it's actually 2 o'clock. Your timing is perfect.
It's a marathon. It's a telethon.
We've actually run out of time. We can all go to the bathroom. And I thank you so much for doing this. It was really, really wonderful.